So your tank is all set up, and now you're getting flack for not having plants in it. Well, lucky for you, my friends over at Boost Plant are going to help you out. So I reached out to them and asked if they would send me what they considered some of their top easiest plants for those of us that don't have a green aquatic thumb, but want to make our tanks look a little more natural. So with this, I'm happy to announce that I have now partnered with Boost Plant and become one of their affiliates. There will be a link in the description if you want to check out their amazing selection of plants and get some of these awesome things for yourselves. Link will be in the description. It'll be the pinned comment. It'll be everything there for you. So let's dive into these awesome plants that Boost sent me. Now let me start off by saying also that these are in no particular order. This is just the order that I took them out of the box when they came in. I'm also by no means a plant expert, so please bear with me while I try and say some of these fancy scientific names. I'm going to default to the common name a lot with these. So the first one that I took out is actually a tissue culture, which means it's grown outside of the aquatic environment. It's kind of grown in this like jelly stuff, so you gotta take all that stuff off before you put it in. But it is Crypta T. Brown. Now this is a very popular aquarium plant. I'm sure you've seen it in a lot of places, and it's perfect for you beginners like myself out there that just want to dip our toes in the waters and don't just want a bunch of stem plants and rhizome plants. Now, these will give you a beautiful range of color with deep purples, bright greens, and some warm browns in there as well. Like other crypts, they do grow slowly to a moderate rate, and you can actually grow them submerged or immersed if you want to have like a terrarium thing going on for you. To propagate them, all you got to do is cut off the new plants that grow from your mother plant. Now these actually are, in a way, a rhizome plant. When I first was doing crypts, I didn't realize this, and I planted them too deep. So you will want to keep the white cap part at the bottom of the base of the root and stem out of your soil so that you don't kill them. Now, tissue plant cultures are grown in vitro from a state-of-the-art lab that specializes in propagating aquatic plants. So they provide the best option if you don't want to worry about any type of pest in there. So these have zero chance of snails. You just got to remove them from the gel before you plant it. You can just wash that off or soak it in some water. It'll come right off in your fingers. The leaves get about 2 to 3 inches. They like around a pH of 6, 7.5. Low light to medium. CO2 is really not needed, but you can add it if you want. And as I said, all you gotta do is clip them, and they will grow for you brand new plants. To the number 2 here, we got a Hydroc Tracata. Probably saying that completely wrong, but the name's on the screen. To me, this plant looks like clover or parsley, and it's apparently a famous plant for aquascapes over in Japan. Now, it is of course characterized by those more clover-like looking leaves, and it's going to grow in some compact bushes for you. Now, the plant is extremely versatile. You can put it in the foreground, the midground, the background. Meaning you can put it in front, middle, or back of your tank, for those of you that aren't up on the aquascaping lingo. It is a fast-growing plant, and it will often outcompete or overgrow other things in your tank, so you do have to trim them if you don't want like a jungle of just this going on. If you trim them a lot and you give them a high light with a little CO2, plant's going to stay, lower and create a nice carpet effect if you wish to do it that way. Propagating them is a stem plant, so it's the easiest type of plant to propagate. You just cut it off at the stem, and you can either plant it or just let it float around, and it will eventually grow shoots. Height, we're looking at about 5 to 10 inches with a pH range of 6.5 to 7. Care is extremely easy. It's going to want a more moderate light, and it's got a moderate to fast growth as well. Next one out of the back is one of my all-time favorite plants because it's so cool, small, and easy to do. It's an Anubis Nanop, and I can say the name, so that's another reason I like this one. So Anubis Nanop is one of the most popular Anubiases out there, and like other Anubiases, is extremely easy to plant and grow and can really survive in a wide range of parameters. I know in my tanks alone, I have it in temperatures ranging from like the 60s to the upper 70s and even low 80s, and the pH is anywhere from 6 to 8. So it can take a nice, decent wide range of parameters and temps. It does have a slower growth rate, but again, it can be grown in both aquariums and terrariums if you want to emerge it or submerge this plant. It is also a flowering plant, so if you do, tend to this correctly, you can get a nice little flower to grow on them. For these, typically you're going to want to attach these to a wood or a stone. You can, if you're very careful, plant these in the substrate, and by that I mean just the root tips, and it will spread itself out, but you don't want to actually submerge the base of the green part here where all the leaves are attached. So between where the leaves and the roots come off, that is your rhizome. You don't want that buried at all, or you will suffocate the plant. They are also easy because they have a low to medium light requirement, and you don't need to, have that high intense light that some people have in their tanks. You give them fertilizer or not, and they should be fine as well. And again, CO2 is not necessary for these. It is a much slower growing plant, so it is more susceptible to algae growth if you have the high light on them. Propagation is also really easy. You just gotta cut a small part of your rhizome and just, kind of replant it. Personally, I just like to lightly attach mine with either a small piece of thread or something on a rock or a piece of driftwood, and then as it grows, it will suck itself to that, and you can just take that string off. You don't want your fish getting caught up in it. They get about 3 to 5 inches long. I wouldn't say tall. They kind of more spread out than anything. Again, low light, pH 6 to upwards of 7.5, if not a little higher, but they do have a very slow growth rate, so just keep that in mind when you're planting these. Going along with that, we have Brownie Blue, and this features a nice oblong leaf with a more wavy edge that will get a nice bluish hue to it as it grows under your water. Now again, it can be grown submerged or immersed, and it's very similar to other Boost plants out there. Put it under an aquarium LED light, you'll get a nice different color to it as well. It's good for nano tanks or it's a nice little accent to put around your tank. The other good thing about Boost is, like the Anubis, it does like low to medium light. So again, you don't need to have a super high powered light with these. I have some growing in my tanks that the light's kind of been dead for 6 months, and just with the ambient light of the sunlight and my ceiling fan, they're growing just fine. Again, you don't want to plant these directly in the soil. You want to keep that rhizome above it as well. pH range on these again is 6 to 7.5. Low light. You don't need to worry about CO2 with them, and they again also have a very slow growth rate. Next up is probably one you've all heard of. It's the Amazon sword. Very common plant in the hobby. They do get nice and big and bushy, if you will. Now, I have not had the best luck with swords in the past, but I think, again, I was also planting them too deep. Just like your crypts, you don't want to put the white cap part at the bottom in there. It's a very hardy plant. They are hard to kill. Now, I've killed many of them myself, but the Boost ones I have not really had too many issues with. They do range in height anywhere from 4 to 20 inches tall. pH, again, like most, 6.5 to 7.5, low to moderate light, and they will kind of just shoot off these little growth spurt plants, and you just clip them and plant them, and you have brand new baby plants. Another super easy aquarium plant for those of us with low light tanks, the Java Fern, extremely popular in the hobby because it gets nice and luscious, and you can really put it anywhere you want, and again, low light, so you don't have to worry about a high powered light. It will stay small, it can get big, it all depends on how you do it. This one is another one you can either put on driftwood, rocks, or just kind of wrap around any aquarium decor you want. I like just kind of sticking it inside logs or in between pieces of driftwood and just letting it do this thing. I have a 2.5 gallon tank that has just had the same piece of Java Fern constantly growing off shoots now for about 4 or 5 years. They typically get between 3 to 5 inches, pH 6 to 7.5. Propagation, again, you see these little shoots come off, it's going to look like a couple of hair whiskers coming off them. Clip them and they will start growing on their own for you. Next one up is Mini Bulbitris or Baby Leaf, and this is a slow growing fern that you can actually then grow submerged or emerge. It's kind of like a Java Fern or Anubis. That rhizome you don't want to attach directly into the soil. You want to put it on a rock or something, or if you prefer, you can use an aquarium weight. Just make sure it's not one that's going to leach metals into your tank. I have some of these growing in my community tank as well with the light not working on them, and it is thriving with just ambient light and no actual aquarium light. Looking at getting about 2 to 4 inches, pH about 6 to 7.5. Again, low light. You can cut it on the rhizome just like you do with your Anubis or your Boost if you want to propagate this. And the last one that they sent me is probably the most easy thing ever in this box. It's just a floating Christmas moss ball. They literally just put Christmas moss on a plastic thing that floats and wrap a little thread around it and put a weight on it. So all you have to do with this is take it out of the bag, wrap the string to what size you want, just put it in your tank. That's it. This is like the most easy basic plant if you could ever have. Most mosses are this easy. The cool thing about this one is because it's elevated, you don't have to worry about glue, you don't have to worry about the string because I already did that for you, and you don't have to worry about it just sitting. Now, I have had Christmas moss and Java moss. You can use with Java moss yourself if you want. It's just an awesome, easy plant because it likes low light, doesn't really require anything else, and it will suck the nutrients from your water right out of it, so you don't have to worry about algae once this gets established and growing. If it gets out of hand, you just give it a little haircut, and if you have other tanks already set up, you can just throw it right in there. It also makes a nice hiding spot and creates a dither point for fish trying to get away from each other, so fish can feel safe in there. If you have egg scatterers or egg layers, they might actually put their eggs on Christmas moss, so it's another advantageous thing to have for that as well. And aquarium moss is really hardy. I've got some in tanks that don't have heaters at all that'll get down to 60. I have some in tanks that get up to 80 degrees, and it grows in olive. It also has a really wide pH swing, anywhere from 6 to 8.0. I have extremely soft water with low pH, and my mosses thrive in that. But I also throw some in an African sickle tank, and it will grow as well and give me some free food. Low light, growth is moderate to high, depending on if you fertilize your water and give it CO2. And to propagate it, all you gotta do is let it grow, and then take some scissors and just cut it off. If you want something that's extremely easy, I suggest going with the Christmas moss ball. Big thank you to Boost Plant for sending me these plants to show off to all of you. Please make sure you check out their link in the description below. And if you liked any of these plants, please let me know in the comments down below what your favorite plant is, or if you have an alternative to someone who's just dipping their toes in the water of keeping plants. I will link a couple other plant videos for those of you interested in them, and I will see you in the next one.